Final stand will probably, instead of being Malfeasance or Warden's Law, you're probably going to use something like Still Hunt if you're on Hunter. If you're on Warlock or Titan, you're probably saving a damage super or using maybe Whisper, whatever heavy ammo you have left. The standard stuff, right? Standard stuff. Next up, we have Magnificent Howl. I believe there was a bug that allowed you to infinitely proc Magnificent Howl. You would never run out of those empowered bullets. However, you know, I'm not 100% sure on this, but again, it's disabled. I wasn't going to recommend it anyway, so we'll leave it at that. And finally, Facet of Command, which I believe is the reload fragment for Prismatic. That is also been disabled for whatever reason. I'm not sure why, but it's been disabled. So again, we're not going to talk about it, and we're going to move on because I wasn't going to recommend it anyway. Artifact mods. People have done some testing with these mods, and from what I've gathered so far, Expanding Abyss is less essential than I thought it was. With a Tractor debuff, it appears to be only about a 4 or 5% increase to Void damage. So yes, it still incentivizes people to choose Void when the options are equal, but don't feel, you know, necessarily obligated to pick a Void weapon in this sandbox at this current time with this artifact mod. If you have Void weaken, so it's something like, you know, a Snare Bomb or something like an Undermining Grenade or a Twilight Arsenal weaken, the buff is a little bit bigger, but I would say still, you know, if you're using Tractor, it's still worth, you know, tacking on, but not the most important armor mod in the world, or artifact mod in the world, I should say. Argent Blade, this hasn't been tested extensively. I'm going to assume it's 15%. This is really straightforward. I think the artifact mod situation this day one is fairly straightforward. If you're doing sword damage and you're on Falling Guillotine, stick these two on. If you're doing literally anything else, stick these two on. Shield Crush, this is like a meta-defining artifact mod. It's just free regen and damage on your abilities just for having buffs, which if you have stuff like Facet of Purpose on, or if you have Radiant Orbs on, you will have buffs all the time. So Shield Crush is excellent. Transference, this is specifically for Transcendence. From what I've seen, Transcendence is about what I expect it to be, meaning it's not meta-defining, game-breaking, anything like that. You also don't get full Transcendence bars when you rally, so you need to charge it up yourself. Now, is it something that I would recommend sacrificing critical fragments for just so you can get it faster? Not really, not really. It is nice. It feels just like an empowered, oh, I can play a little bit more aggressive and not play my life so much type of thing. I guess I suppose it's like a little bit of a decent panic button as well. But besides that, yeah, I don't know. It's not necessarily something you should really struggle with. But if you're talking just neutral gameplay, there's no reason to run something like Expanding Abyss or Argent Blade, or certainly not Prismatic Transfer. So these two, I think, are fine for neutral content. And then in fourth column, Radiant Orbs and Galvanic Armor. Very few exceptions here. I mean, if you're using something like Buried Bloodline, or maybe something like Collective Obligation, again, Void Hegemony is an option, but I think most people aren't really using that. So I would say focus and stick to these two mods in the fourth column. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about the three classes. Now, I'm going to talk about Warlock first, then Hunter, then Titan. Now, I will give you this here.
It also,
Warlock, so
like,
I'm not aptly prepared
they designed encounters around it.
As much as my Warlock. I've just kind of thrown together a sample build in-game. I've obviously put a lot of thought into the actual builds themselves, but I haven't thrown together anything crazy specific with armor mods for Hunter and Titan, just in the interest of time. So first, let's start with Warlock. So Warlock, I hate to break it to you guys, you're still going to be on Well of Radiance on this day one, right? Even if you have multiple Warlocks, I think maybe only having 1 or 2 on Song of Flame is a good idea. If you have like 4 Warlocks or something like that, definitely I would strongly suggest running 2 Wells, right? Well of Radiance is going to be your bread and butter, right? It's going to be the foundation upon which you build by adding DR, by adding boss damage reduction, right? There's a couple things you can do to assist with making Well as survivable as it was before. It's not going to be as low effort as before. Now, in terms of neutral gameplay, I'm going to suggest one of 2 routes, or one of 3 routes, I suppose, right? You have 3 different options. You have 2 kind of offensive ability spam options in Solar Grenade spam, Fusion Grenade spam, and then you have Healing Grenade spam as well, which is more of a defensive option.
I should say, I was proposing the alternate
solutions. I love Sunbracers, right? I've been using them for a long time. I'm very comfortable on Sunbracers. That being said, if you're not comfortable on Sunbracers, I would say the safer pick for ability play on this day one, if you want some offense, is going to be Starfire, or Verities, or Karnstein. Karnstein was an option I was brought up. I'm not completely against it on the Fusion Grenade build, right? Finally, if you want something more defensive, or maybe you're in an encounter where you can't necessarily kill the ads, or maybe you're doing boss DPS, for example, and you want some defensive support, Speakers, Sight, Mantle of Battle Harmony, and Cenotaph Mask all fit well with the Healing Grenade spam build, which I'll show you in just a second.
Honestly, just
generally,
the
if you're a
safety of it,
divinity
I
user,
really
I have a prismatic
don't mind
build
the idea of
that
having a
automatically
warlock
applies
on,
Sever to the boss,
well,
among other things,
speaker's
that I think is
sight,
good
just
for
like
neutral gameplay. If you
times
are
two resto
the
turrets
divinity
everywhere
user,
on a
you
day
can
one.
pop
You
your
kidding
Song
me?
of
It
Flame at the
sounds
start of
really
damage,
fucking
give all of your
deluxe.
allies Radiant. I believe
Sounds
the
like
description
it'd
also
make
says it
life
gives
a
damage resist.
lot easier.
Compendium doesn't seem to include this, so I don't know how much damage resist Song of Flame gives. If no one has that answer by tonight, I will figure it out. I will test that as well.
Okay, so
But
this
I believe
stream
other
appears to be
people are
working just
testing that, so
fine.
I'll let them test that. But my point is,